Bershus Harabanim Achashuvim, Bershus Kal Kadosh. I want to share a beautiful yisod I saw from Rabbi Yosef on Chinuch. He brings the Ramchal and Mesilas Yesharim. The Ramchal says, he starts off in the first parak of Yisod HaChasidut B'Shorosh HaAvodah. The Yisod, the true Chasidus and the root of your Avodas Hashem Atmimah, Sheisba'el V'Itamet, it should be true and clear to you, your chova in this world, your obligation in this world. Why were you brought into this world, and what's your purpose in this world? And he says it's the ability Lihisaneg al Hashem, to delight in Hashem, Ulehanot Miziv Shchinato, and to have Hana from his Shchina. The Shchina is Hashem. There's an ambition, there's a goal, there's a focus that a person has to have. Lihisaneg al Hashem, to delight in Hashem, to get pleasure from the mitzvahs Hashem, to fulfill his tafkid in the world of delight and pleasure in service of a Kadosh Baruch Hu. This is a ta'anug that is really destined, he says, the Mesilas Yesharim. This ta'anug, this pleasure is really for the next world. It's too much for this world, but this place is a preparation for that. Now it seems like the world, when we describe this word called chinuch, so it's really like a balance of oppositions of many different things. You'll have affection and criticism. You'll have knowledge, teaching information and giving musar. You'll have punishment and reward. You'll have discipline and management. And all this is true. There's many things in life and there's many facets to life. Not everything in life is necessarily pleasurable. Rabbi Victor Miller says, a baby is born into the world and they go through a process called teething. And it hurts a lot. It doesn't hurt when your hair grows, and it doesn't hurt when your nails grow, but it hurts when your teeth grow. And as Rabbi Victor Miller says, the reason for that is that the child should understand and know as a preparation that not everything in life is necessarily so pleasant. Even in Limud Torah, we dive into Hashem, Hashem, make your Torah sweet, make it delicious. The fino, put Torah sweet in our mouths. Remember Marash Koilo, he said Arev, that we define as sweet, doesn't mean sweet. Arev, and the sharish of Arev, it means to mix. Yeah, Arev in the Gemara is a big vat, something that you mix things inside of it. Erev Tov, Erev is evening. It's a combination of morning and night. And Erev, you take a lot of Rishuyas and make it into one big Rishus. Call Yisrael, Arev and Zalazeh. Erev means to mix. So what does it mean? We dive into Hashem to mix it so it should be, we touch it as sweet. If you take very fishy fish and you take bitter herbs and you take dry wine, you take sour salt and lemon and you mix it together, hopefully you'll come out with something delicious. That the combination of everything together should result in something very sweet. The hariv not, Torah's work. There's a lot of work to be done. There's things to do. There's things to master, to learn. There's struggles we have to go through and situations that we have to prevail over. But the result should be sweet. The hariv na Hashem, our Torah should be sweet. However, the word chinuch, the specific word chinuch, what does chinuch mean? Rashi says, Tchilas knisas adam le'omna shu'atid la'amod ba. It's the initial and beginning purpose that a person is destined to be. The initial and beginning purpose that you're destined to be. Chinuch means to prepare something for its initial use. As I state in Rashi, you have a Chanukas Abayis, you buy a house, you make a Chanukas Abayis. You invite everybody, everybody comes, you have food, you make brachot, you say tefillot, you do some learning, you imbue the house with Torah and Kedusha. When that party is gone, it doesn't mean that the house is gone. It's the initial purpose of the house, but the function of the house is going to continue after the Chanukas Abayis. Chanukah is also chinuch. The chinuch of a child, you're meant to prepare the child for what they're going to continue doing when the chinuch process is over. And if we're saying, Zaki Avichel Yaakovson, if we're saying that the purpose, our purpose in the world is Lihisaneg al Hashem, to take delight in Hashem, to enjoy Hashem, to enjoy that delightful mitzvahs of ruchnius, to be together with the Kadosh Baruch Hu in the most delicious and enjoyable way, then chinuch means that you're giving a child or yourself the ability to enjoy ruchnius, the ability to delight in mitzvot and avodas Hashem. That's what chinuch means, because it's preparation for its future use. Legabe tefillah, tefillah should be a thing that you enjoy and you're encouraged and you want to do on your own in the future. When it comes to chesed, it's something that you're doing on a level of enjoyment that you're going to want to do on your own in the future. That's what chinuch is. He says at Maisa, there's a little girl. She comes to her father. Father's a big mechanech. And the mechanech is talking to an avrich. And the girl comes to her father with a candy. She's 4 or 5 years old. And she doesn't want to make a bracha. So the mechanech looks at the avrich and says, what should I do? What do you think I should do? So the avrich says, don't give her the candy. So the mechanech says, it's not chinuch. Taking away the candy from her and not letting her have it till she makes a bracha is just training her that she's not allowed to eat without a bracha. At most, I'll get her used to not eating without a bracha. But that's not being mechanech to make a bracha. So the avrich says to the mechanech, so what do you say I should do? What should you do? She says, watch. And of course, an example is an example. Usually they're extreme, but we learn from the example. He looks at the child, Ma'aseh Shahaya, and he tells her, he goes, Hashem kulo tov. Hashem is all good, and Hashem loves you, and Hashem cares for you, and he wants all goodness in the world. And Hashem gave us a beautiful world to enjoy. And therefore, taking something from the world without making a bracha is like taking something without saying thank you. And Hashem wants you to say thank you. So I understand you can't do it now. It's too hard. So put the candy down now. And when you're ready and able, you'll pick it up and you'll make a bracha, and then you can enjoy the candy. And she agreed. She picks up the candy. She makes a bracha. Abba's eyes open up wide and big, and he goes, wow. You know what you just did? I want to tell you a story. There's malachim in Shemayim. In Shemayim, there's thousands and thousands of malachim. And they're singing Shira to Hashem. They're singing a song to Hashem, all in unison, all together. They're shaking the Shemayim with their song. They're saying it proud. They're saying it loud. The Shemayim is Bekulo Rash, and all of a sudden, a voice comes out in Shemayim, a proclamation. And there's a little voice, Akol Daka Metuka, a beautiful, sweet little voice coming down from below on earth, and that's your voice. And your bracha is taken by malachim and is covered with jewels, and Hashem takes your bracha, hugs your bracha, kisses your bracha, and puts it aside and can't wait for the next one. The girl gets swelled up in her eyes, and she runs to the kitchen and asks Ima, is there anything else I can make a bracha on? When I finished reading the story today, I saw it in print. I heard my daughter Leah, 5 years old, making a bracha in the kitchen. And I said, Leah, come here. I said, you know what you just did? And she goes, what? And I said, the bracha that you made is malachim and shemayim, and there's a big rash, and kula shir Hashem, and all of a sudden there was a call downstairs, about down below. Everyone said, shh, and it was, and Hashem loves your bracha. Like, do you know how special that is? And she looks at me with her puppy eyes, and she goes, yeah. And she walks away. It doesn't always happen the same way in everybody's home. But chinuch is teaching someone to enjoy the pleasure in avodas Hashem, teaching someone to delight in the pleasure of avodas Hashem. For many years, I was zoich in camp. There's 2 big mountains, and there was a vision of this Ola Larega, where everybody came from all directions to Rabbi Sonnenschein and Rabbi Kalish's question and answer. Every Shabbos, week after week, for almost a decade, I was zoich, and I know it continued on here. You know, everybody has their own mountain in life. And at the bottom of the mountain, there's the party, there's the food, there's the songs, there's the music, there's the chevra. And as you go higher up in the mountain, there's less and less people until you get to the top. And on top of the mountain, there's only room for one. And that's your mountain. And for years, I saw we have turned the Sinai, 2 big mountains, guiding people, giving hadracha, giving love, making mandations that people should grow and succeed and climb their mountains. And without further ado, we're excited to hear from Moreno Rabbeinu, Rabbi Sonnenschein, and Rabbi Kalish Rabbi Yosef.
Thank you, Rabbi Gigi. Before we start talking about Chinuch, the truth is that this is a perfect opportunity for Rabbi Kalish and I to thank Rabbi Gigi and to express our admiration for his taking on this role in the shtibel that he's taken on recently, relatively recently. And it makes us feel a little bit less lonely and feel like we have a partner and a chaver and somebody who's so eminently qualified. And it's a very with tremendous hakaras hatov and admiration for all of your hard work and for the ne'imus and the ava with which you do that work. Yashikaya. I want to also thank Yeshiva Katana for organizing this event, for giving us the opportunity to talk about this sugya of chinuch. I often feel like all of these shmuzin and conversations that we have about chinuch, the content is second to the fact that we're sitting and talking about chinuch. That's the most important thing, that it's on our minds, that it's a conversation, that it's something that we're thinking about. And I know myself that there's no doubt that the years that Rabbi Gigi mentioned that I sat together with Rabbi Kalish and that we schmoozed barabim, but we schmoozed about chinuch, including many conversations not barabim, especially in the summers. It helped me to be a more thoughtful father, and it's certainly there's no doubt that just the fact that issues in chinuch are being talked about, whether they're negeya specifically for me each issue or not, that's not what's important. What's important is that chinuch is a subject, that Waterbury talks about chinuch, that Waterbury cares about chinuch. That's a tremendous thing. And I want to thank Yeshiva Katana for organizing such a gathering. And I'm sure you see on the seats, they didn't ask me to say this, but I'm going to say the obvious, that on our seats, there's a paper that says scan QR code to become an ambassador. We need you for Yeshiva Katana of Waterbury. So I'm just reading that out loud. I wasn't asked to say this, but I think that it's quite obvious. It's quite obvious that we have an achrayus, something that we've talked about before. We have an achrayus to be there for the Yeshiva Katana that made Waterbury possible. And we have incredible, indescribable hakaras hatov for the hundreds and thousands of hours that the various mechanchim and mechanchos have put into our children. And we're excited and optimistic about the future as the community grows. The achdus and the rabbanim and the mechanchim working together to be able to encompass all the needs of the community. Amir Hashem will continue to mature. We're going to get better and better at working together to make sure that we meet the needs of the community. And I'm very, very optimistic and excited about that. Sometimes when people get together to talk about chinuch, so there's like this sense that, it's a bad situation out there. Look what's happening in the homes in Klal Yisrael. It's a nightmare. And we're doing something wrong, and we have to figure out how to do it right. And Rabbi Kalish and I know that I could speak for him when I say this, that our approach to such a gathering and to the perspective on the chinuch of Klal Yisrael is exactly the opposite. That our feeling is that, and again, I know I could speak for Rabbi Kalish when I say, like, in our opinion, it's obvious. Klal Yisrael has been in Gullus for 2,000 years. Look at us. We're trying with all of our heart and soul to bring the chinuch that we received from our parents to the next generation. And it's difficult, and the forces of Gullus and the Yetzer Hara and the darkness continues to change and twist and turn, and the Yetzer Hara is a shapeshifter. And we continue, generation after generation, Jewish mothers and Jewish fathers are being meiser nefesh to give over chinuch to their children, and we are in awe and in admiration for that unbelievable, the unbelievable accomplishments of parents. It's a mistake to gather together to talk about chinuch and to talk about, it's just a dark, messed up world, and maybe because we're the lights of the world, we'll be able to shine a little light on it. It's baloney. The parents in Klal Yisrael are incredible, absolutely incredible. And both of us have had the opportunity. Rabbi Kalish has extensively, has traveled across the world. Rabbi Kalish has traveled to Europe, to South Africa, to speak, and he can speak of this more than I can. But all over the world, from Yidden are being meiser nefesh with dedication, with devotion, with love, with humility, to give over chinuch to the next generation. And so it's geschmack that we're talking about the sugya of chinuch, but we're doing so with an attitude of speaking to people that are already doing such a fabulous job and already are working so hard. Before I bring up, Rabbi Kalish and I discussed a few topics that we're each gonna weigh in on to schmooze about, again, just to have the conversation about chinuch. But I want to just express me'umka de liba, the hakaras hatov that I have for the relationship with Rabbi Kalish and the ability to talk over these sugyas with him. From the day that we met almost 25 years ago, Rabbi Kalish has been for me a person that's mekayim son no einecha ure'eh, lift up your eyes and see. And he's given me a perspective and a sense of looking up and looking broadly and seeing the whole picture and not getting caught in the minutia and in the details, but seeing the details are important, but seeing the whole picture and seeing the whole person, seeing the whole picture and seeing the greatness in every neshama, not as a speech, not as a slogan, not as a song, but the greatness in each person, because that's how he lives. He looks up and he's sana einecha. He looks with a derhaibenkite. He looks at Klal Yisrael, and it's been an absolute zechus. I'm afraid I'm going to start crying. It's been an absolute zechus and a life-changing thing. It's been a quarter of a century already that we've had that zechus to spend time together. Completely changed my life, and for that alone, I am extremely grateful, and I feel extremely honored to be able to sit by this table together with him. The Ramban al HaTorah says, when he's talking about chinuch, when he's talking about the parshias of Kriya Shema, so the pasuk tells us, "V'limadatem oisam es b'neichem l'daber bam." You should teach the words of Torah to your children, to speak about them. Says the Ramban that the pasuk means you should teach Torah to your children so that they will speak about them. And you see an unbelievable yesod of chinuch in that Ramban. And that is that our job in chinuch is not just to teach our children so that they will do what we told them to do. But the job in chinuch is to teach our children so that they will themselves be living that life and give it over to the next generation. It's a long process. If the job was just to get obedience for this generation, so then we would be able to do a much more external chinuch, like a boot camp. We could do like the army. We can get people to do what we want them to do. But that's not what the Torah demands of us. The Torah wants us to raise children that not just obey the Torah, but that they are the Torah, that they live the Torah, l'daber bam, they speak about the Torah. This is what's the blood that's coursing through their veins, and the mela, they'll give it over to the next generation. The fact that we're here today is a testimony to the chinuch of generations, that it wasn't just to get the next generation to listen to this generation, but it was to get the next generation to live Torah. In order to do that, we have to speak to all levels of our children. We have to speak to the simple external level of our children, but we also have to speak deeply to our children. We have to be aware and conscious of where they're up to emotionally and how they're hearing things. I want to give a few examples of what I mean by that, and then I'm going to ask Rabbi Kalish to explain it, Mirz Hashem, a lot better than I can. There's a fabulous meiri on Daf Lamed in Kedushin, when the Gemara is discussing the ages that our children should get married. The meiri says very famously that the ikar chinuch that we could accomplish in terms of teaching our children is when they get older. He says, Kiben Sheish Esrei, when they're like around 16. And he says that the role of parents is to raise their children in such a way that they can have meaningful conversations with their children when they're 16. And that means that bridges can't be burned, and relationships can't be destroyed, and tensions can't be built to the point that when my children reach those teenage years, maybe 16 in our door means also 26 and 36, but that the conversations with our children are ongoing. And that means being aware and alert and sensitive to where our children are holding emotionally. Things are stressful sometimes, we're distracted, we're being hard on ourselves also. And sometimes we paskin to our children about their feelings. Sometimes a child will say, I'm sorry. And a parent may respond, no, you're not. Sometimes a child might say, I hate my teacher. And a parent might respond, no, you don't. Sometimes a parent might say, I don't want to visit Bubby. And a child will say, I don't want to visit Bubby. And a parent might respond, yes, you do. It's not our job to tell our children what they are feeling. It's our job to teach our children that what they're feeling is chashuv. Now, does that mean that every time a child has a feeling, that's it, they have free reign to act based on the feelings that they have? Of course not. Of course, part of chinuch is, I don't want to visit Bubby. I understand that it's hard for you to go visit Bubby. We're going to visit Bubby. Of course, part of chinuch is teaching our children that our emotions are part of the picture in deciding how we move forward in our avodas Hashem. But it's so important that my children feel comfortable expressing to me how they feel, and that is a reality in our home. It's not something I shove aside. Sometimes people feel like men are more guilty of this than women, that it's a good idea to toughen up our kids, to get our kids to be tough. So we don't want to hear mushy emotions from them. You got to do what you got to do. Toughen up. And really, all we're doing when we do that, all we're doing is encouraging our children to become secret emotion people. Now, then they're no longer telling us how they feel. They're keeping it under wraps. Maybe they're not even telling themselves how they feel anymore. And when we do that, we're destroying something. We're shutting them down. We think we're making them tough. We're really making them weak. A strong child and a strong adult is someone who can be honest and vulnerable about how they feel and know that what they have to do despite that and how to work with that. But to ignore the emotions and the feelings, the sensitivities, the subtlety of what's going on inside of our children is a tremendous hazard that doesn't lead to ledaber bum. It doesn't lead to it extending to another generation. Sometimes parents feel uncomfortable apologizing to their children. How's that going to affect my kavod? It's very important. How's it going to affect my kavod if I admit that I made a mistake? Or if I tell my child that I'm struggling with something? Or if I admit that I'm afraid of something, or that I'm worried about something? And again, a mechanech understands that in a bakavadic way, of course, a parent that's over apologizing to his children is doing it's not a good idea. No, there's no child that wants to hear super emotional apologies from their parents. It's not comfortable for anyone. It's worse for the child than it is for the parents. But for a parent to be able to say, I overreacted, I'm sorry, that's covered. That vulnerability is bakavadik. I was having a hard day. I'm struggling with making a minyan. I'm struggling with that conversation we had by the Shabbos table. I shouldn't have said that. I'm working on myself. Statements like that do not lower your stature in the eyes of your children. They raise your stature in the eyes of your children. Your children see you as an Eved Hashem that's working on himself. And finally, when we give our children, and I'll give over to Rabbi Kalish with that, when we give our children responsibility in terms of chinuch, whether it's to listen to Megillas Esther, or to eat a kazayas of matzah, or to wake up and they fell asleep on the couch, to listen to Kiddush on Friday night, if that's the appropriate thing, whether it's in Sur Meirava Asay Tov, whether it's to make a bracha on a candy or not to make the bracha, It's very important that we know what they're ready for. It's very clear in the place. Here in Shul, we had a chabur over Yantif about this, that if a child's not, if it's not age appropriate, if he's not ready to take on that mitzvah, if he's not ready to take on that chiyuv, first of all, there's no chiyuv chinuch. Igia lechinuch means that there's an ability. Yadei l'na'neya, so yadei l'hisatev. A chinuch comes along with the ability to be makayim the mitzvah. And second of all, we can crush something in a child when we force them to do something that from the pneumius they're not ready to do. And if we could wait till the moment that they're ready to do it, then it's the right time. It's an unbelievable hatzlacha forward to create that hergel in a child, and not to start off their life of avodas Hashem with things like telling a 2.5-year-old muktzah, muktzah, muktzah. That's not an introduction to Shabbos that's going to be beneficial for that child when he's 21. That's not when he's 16. I'm not going to be having a good conversation about Shabbos with him because he touched the magic marker when he was a year old, and I said Shabbos like as if he was driving on Bar Ilan. That's not going to help. That's not going to help my child. Helping my child is to be makir, al pi darkei, to understand his teva, to understand when he's ready for it, and very much in the way Rabbi Gigi described, to be able to take the chinuch at the right moment and to take it forward. Rabbi Kalish.
Thank you to the Rabbi Sonnenschein. I want to start by thanking Rabbi Gigi for his warm words, for his divrei Torah, and really say to the whole island how fortunate we feel in this city that the Gigi, the mishpacha, the whole family, they're heroes in the community, people who have tremendous yiras shamayim, awareness of Hashem, Abbas Hashem, and with their whole family, what they're creating and building in our city. This is a gathering of chinuch to appreciate such a Rav and Rebbitzin who are creating such a powerful world and a powerful sviva of sincerity for authentic service of Hashem is something very, very precious that we're all appreciative of. And I want to thank them and really appreciate their whole family. I want to say that. To watch them the way, right? Gigi's not just the Rav, his child accepted the son of a Rav and the daughters of Rabbanim. The whole mishpacha, the Rabbanis, is the family has taken it on the way it's supposed to be. And it allows for our families. It's not just for the men, not just for the wives, the children. It's an entire family. We can have the possibility. And we speak about chinuch. I grew up, myself, my sister, Mrs. Russ, when we heard that my Rebbe was nifter. My Rebbe was our Rav. We grew up davening every Shabbos in Shul. Every Yom Tov was with my Rebbe. Every Pesach, Shavuos, Sukkot, every Purim, Chanukah, the Yom Nairam was with my Rebbe. He was part of our lives, and he elevated us from 2, 3, 4, 5 as a family. We were part of his seber, and for Rabbi Gigi and his mishpacha, the Rebbitzin, to create something, an environment, another place that people's entire family could plug into is something to appreciate. And at a chinuch rally, it's not like a side thing to get out of the way. Okay, I want to get to the camera. I'm talking about chinuch. Maybe this was the most important lesson of chinuch that we could share in the world of chinuch, to appreciate a mishpacha that in such a beautiful, dehyping, positive, cheerful, gorgeous way is giving something to the tzibur. So I wanted to thank them for that. I wanted to say as well about Rabbi Brescher. I wanted to say in shul, I have things I want to share with the tzibur. The things important to me, I value a lot. Every Shabbos, every other Shabbos, the opportunity to learn means a lot to me. It's one of my favorite slots of the week. To speak to them, my friends, we're very close, and I take it very seriously. The drush and shul, it's 10, 15 minutes. I care about that a lot. It's not something I give up. I don't try to speak those minutes and care about it week after week. I can't have, there are all different things that can go on at the shul that I could want to disrupt. I feel that slot's important, and I speak about things that I think need to be spoken about. When Rabbi Brescher's there, it's over. My kids know it. I'm talking about Rabbi Brescher. It's not a trick. It's not like this. It's like Pasha. Rabbi Brescher has been mechanech our children for years. He dreamed of a world of kids becoming B'nai Torah. When I see the kids, Ben Asmanim, all returning, we have so the glory of our city, the kids of our city. I always think a feeling Rabbi Brescher deserves this. He deserves it. He's fought, he's been a champion for our kids, for the chinuch of our children. It's not a ploy in a city, basics. Rabbi Brescher comes, I'm not talking about anything, I'm talking about him. It would be like silly. We can't pay our mechanchim properly, our mechanchos properly. But it's pashut in a city. We have our kids, our dream, my dream, your dream, that our kids are loyalists to God. Sincere children, our biggest dream of our life, Amalenu, the main toil of our life, Elu Abanim, is our children. There's not like a teacher in the school is there, like the kavod that it's not like a shtick, like be mechabed rebbeim. I worry in this. I could say I like the country. I think they're good to us, the country, and I hope it stays that way. And I try to be patriotic. I don't like when people knock the president. I get nervous when people knock the police. Any far-sighted person in 50 years, I get people that want to be cops. We need the cops. And I've watched the deal with the caps with such cover. It's like Pasha. It's not a trick. It's not like a cap. We're not like
Wait a second.
the basic.
I'll be sure to eat a meal once.
Who cares about the chinuch of our children? I want to continue, and the thank yous might be important than what I say, but this will be a segue into what I want to start with. In this camp, everybody here tremendously appreciate it. I see so many friends that are here, and just appreciate on a Wednesday night that we're sitting here, like Rabbi Sonnenschein said, just that we're here before any discussion is like our children. I'm very close friends with Reb Josh. We're good friends. The care he has, my children, that alone, like we're all saying together, our kids, before we talk any discussion, our dreams, we want to be sincere servants of Hashem, and we want our children to be authentic servants of Hashem, like real, authentic, God-fearing people is the dream of all our lives. And being here, coming on a Wednesday night for a rally, a conversation about chinuch, already says it. Now, you can imagine we could talk about any topic. The hour's already late. The Akdama was so long. It was very chosen, and Rabbi Sonnenschein, we spoke for minutes, very briefly last night, and we wrote down 4 things. We said the 4th thing we probably won't get to, and it's looking like we won't. But 3 things we want to get to, like for sure, and this is the first thing. We don't even get to think 2 and 3. We want to get to. There was a reason we picked something. Now, in thanking, I've been friends with Rabbi Sonnenschein, a tremendous chus, a life-changing chus. We met close 24 years ago. I was zeicher to meet Rabbi Sonnenschein, and Rabbi Sonnenschein has changed and impacted my life tremendously. And there was whole sugyas in learning that were completely closed to me for many years. A whole part of Torah Sheba'al Peh that I knew nothing about. And there was certain aspects of emotion, of understanding of self, they go hand in hand, that I was very closed off to. And it's the topic that we decided to speak about first, because I think understanding the kid of today, if anybody asks, has there been change? I don't like just theories and throw our kids, what are kids of today? Have kids changed today? What is the kid of today? If anybody's noticed, your kids will talk to you different than we spoke to our parents. Is that a chiddush? Is that like our kids speak from young ages? The reaction, I would never say that to my dad. I would never say that to my mom. So what are we seeing? There's an attitude, and I've seen this, that the kids of today need a patch. Whoa, there's a certain attitude from far. Whoa, there just needs to be, okay, but we can't hit. What are we seeing? That attitude, they just need a patch. I don't think it's true. Bichlal. And I think every generation is unique, has unique nekudas and milas. To ever make the generation better than earlier generations, Achshar Dara, is a tremendous mistake. And closer to Sinai, we celebrate parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. The generations were remarkable. When I say a mile of today's generation, chas v'shalom, if that comes across in any way as a knock in the earlier generations, we stand on their shoulder. It would be as if I would put my kid on my shoulder and I asked him, what do you see down there? And somebody said, your kid could see further than you. He's on my shoulder. Yes, when he stands on my shoulder, he could see further. It doesn't mean he's taller than me. He's on my shoulder. We are on earlier Dairis' shoulder. We're only here because of them. Today's generation has an honesty and an emotional nuance that is wild. They're understanding subtleties. I speak to my children. I did not have this emotional nuance. I don't have it yet. I'm working on it. I come from a world of action, of performance, of just do it. And today's generation is very, very honest and very nuanced. They're emotionally very, very nuanced, very, very aware of things, very sensitive. Some kids can express it, and some kids can't articulate it. And some kids will just behave and follow us. And just, if we don't encourage that and understand that, we'll just, okay, you told me just behave, so they'll do it. I think learning, I think for us, really, really paying attention to emotional nuance, hearing what people are feeling, allowing for what people are experiencing and really trying to hear it is very, very big. I went somewhere, I was at a gathering and somebody advertised about the speaker. The speaker advertised, I have spoken to thousands of children. So one of my children said to me, if he said he listened to thousands of children, I'd want to hear his speech. He's spoken to thousands of children, he only knows his own opinion. And I say that if we really listen and hear and pay attention, there's tremendous nuance today. Our kids will share and be open. I want to say, Chazal, obviously Chazal tell us that afilu av b'nai, a father and a son, who learn together are first enemies. A father and a son who learn together are first enemies. They love each other after the learning experience. Even a father and a son, enemies. You came to a chinuch gathering to hear a father and a son should be enemies. And Rabbi Yisrael explains the Gemara Kedushim Lamed Aleph that a father and a son being enemies means that they have different perspectives and allow and let it come forth the perspective of the child to understand in a nuanced way what they're expressing, what they're saying. The classic, the kid expresses, and the kid will say, this is what happened, and the father says, that's not what happened. Now the kid doesn't know to articulate, this is what I experienced, not this is what happened. And to allow for the experience, Avu B'nai are enemies. My Rebbe spoke all the time that his father would teach him, what do you hold, Yechiel? And encourage and empower his opinion. And my Rebbe did that to us, encouraged and empowered our opinion, our feelings, our thoughts on things. If our kids don't open up to us, they don't express, often the reason is because we answer them very frum things when they did. Our kid comes home from school, I was embarrassed by recess. A kid said, you always mess up the games. Any frum answer is it's mean. It's mean, it's bad midas to give any, to even say, no, you're such a good kid, you're really cool, that's mean. You wouldn't do that to a friend. The right answer, it's not a trick in chinuch, it's just being emotionally present, is to feel. We've all been embarrassed. Cry with your son, cry with your daughter, feel what they're feeling. Ask a question about what that must have felt. Really, like, feel what they're feeling. You say a frum answer, you shut down. Over time, they will stop coming to you because they know what you're going to say, because they know the frum answer. But their feeling wasn't validated. They won't know this. They won't, I don't know why I don't open up to they won't be able to articulate. But the kids typically who do not open up to parents were told frum answers. Instead of somebody doing the midas, the emotionally present thing, understand. They were just embarrassed by recess. Feel along with the child. Cry, because it really hurts to be embarrassed by recess. By the way, when you do that, they'll tell you the frumkeit they've certainly learned from you. But feel and be emotionally present to our children. The last thing we ever want, Chanoich Lenar al Pi Darkei, on any rally in Chinuch, the pasuk, do we know our kid's story? The last thing we want is when a kid one day says their story and we were like living the wrong thing. We were being mechanech here and their story was here. My message to parents that I would say is know your kid's story, but really know their story. Lean into their story, all our children, all the types of our children, just to get what's happening, to be present emotionally to what's happening. There's no chanoich lenar al pi darkei without knowing their derech. What is your story? To emotionally lean in, to have an awareness of each child. So especially men were very good at physically supporting and emotionally not being present. Being emotionally present to the specific story of our kid. We expand, we grow, we learn, we become bigger and larger when we're emotionally present to our kid's story. We don't want to be out to lunch. We were completely unaware of what's been happening. Now we can't force anybody to express by being emotionally present. And when they do express, not running to answers, but feeling with. Being emotionally present, emotionally nuanced, understanding, and really hearing the story. None of us want a situation when we're older people and our kids come to visit us for 10 minutes and it's awkward. It's just uncomfortable doing their duties, speaking to mom, speaking to dad. If we have honest conversations with our kids and listen to painful things, even when you have a light conversation, you look each other's eyes and you know each other. My son opened up about something this summer. When we spoke, other conversations where we spoke about the next playoff run that Jalen Brunson, I never said anything like it. We look each other's eyes and we know each other. There's intimacy, we know each other. There's no frivolous conversations. Two people to be close, the word of intimacy in the Torah is vayedas, to know, to understand. I get you. The picture I want for us all with our kids is we lock eyes and we nod. We hold eyes, but we know each other. It takes, I want to say that the opportunity of today's dar it's incredible to see. We have the opportunity, it's true. Kids will speak more openly, it's true. And each generation, what we had was amazing. Kids today, it's true, your kids will talk harder to you than you spoke to your parents. But I ask you, did you open up to your parents the way your kids open up to you? Wow. Kids will express and share and give over details. You just shake it. Wow. And we expand and we try to, I need to understand. Can I ask you a question further and find out? And we expand and we grow. And I want to say that this was chosen as the first topic. I would call it lean into your kid's story, emotional nuance. I'm saying the words and I'm working on the topic myself. There are many areas in Chinuch. It's something that was chosen to start because we're seeing, if somebody wants to understand, somebody could say, kids today, this is what we're seeing. Honesty, a sincerity, and emotional nuance, a want to connect. I want to say that the Gemara says that the generation of Mashiach, chutzpah yaski, there's going to be a proliferation of chutzpah. It can't be a bad thing because it calls it a footsteps of Mashiach. The Gemara says it's a footsteps of Mashiach. So it's clearly a good thing. What's this chutzpah? It means we're going to say, I don't get it. You just do it. Just do it. That's what we did. We just did it. And kids of today want to connect to it. It's the footsteps of Mashiach. We're capable of being on fire with Shabbos. We're capable of being on fire with prayer. Kids struggle with prayer more than us. And my kids struggle. It was easier for me to just come to Minyan. My kids daven, it looks to me to connect much better in prayer. I was rooted in the world of just be there, and I was there. They're rooted in connect with that connection to Hashem. When I watched them daven, connection to Hashem, wow, they're connecting to God. I see guys who are young ages, the typical kid in Durham is much more God conscious. I was starker than them. The typical kid is much more. I'm not pretending with anybody here. It would be stupid to say lies tonight. The typical kid is much more God conscious than I was at his age, has more Yer Shemayim than I had at his age. The average kid. They talk about Hashem. It's real conversations. You have to get in with somebody that'll share this with you. Not talking about wearing on their sleeve. You talk to somebody. Conversations with God I didn't have when I was their age. Honest conversations with God. The kid of today, all our children, it doesn't make a difference what yeshivas, our kids of today, and our first message, and I want to say that Rabbi Sonnenschein Shlita changed my life. He was much quicker attuned to this world of the emotions, of the inner workings of us all. I was shut out from it. I didn't know about my own inner workings. I was rooted in action. And then I had to learn my own inner workings, my own feelings, and process them. I want to say something to everybody here that what we want to feel doesn't mean what we feel. When I do an interview for the yeshiva, two guys show up. One guy is a cool, great ball player, excellent, cool kid. And one kid comes as klutzy, not articulate. Do I care? The answer is yes, for all the wrong reasons. The old me would have denied the inner world. I love them both. You're supposed to love them both. You don't get anywhere. You're actually capable of feeling. And you know what? I like the guy more who's cooler. And the other guy, I struggle and I work, I talk to myself. And from the place of honesty, nuance, you actually can get places. I'm going to end with a story on this that I want to end with you. We're all praying for Eretz Yisrael. We're sitting here, and Achenu B'nai Yisrael is in a difficult matzav. To pray with honesty is very, very hard. And as the time goes on, it's harder. That Shir Amalos, after davening, to be passionate, it's harder. I took my daughter to the mall right here in Waterbury, Connecticut. And while she was taking care of something, I was in the hallway alone, and I was on the phone talking to a bacher in Florida. I was talking to Aaron. And an inner city guy comes right to my face, nose to nose. Thought he wanted a hug. Not against Goyim. He wants a hug. He came nose to nose. I thought maybe he knows him. Whatever, we give hugs. He says to me, a big guy, get out of Gaza. He was a big guy. I thought he would knock me out. It was very quiet. The hallways, Waterbury Mall is very quiet. I was a funny guy. A part of me I was scared, and a part of me wanted to laugh because I was thinking like my direct line to Netanyahu, like the guy like, does he know about my direct line? But Lamaisi, then he says a second time, get out of Gaza. I'm looking at him. He spits on the floor and says it a third time, and Chesed Hashem, he walks away. The Bachar on the phone said, "Is everything okay? Is everything okay?" I'm like, yeah, he couldn't help much from Florida. He's a pretty strong guy, but I don't think he'd help me from Florida. Is everything okay? But I want to say that I want to be honest. I had a very selfish thought. Before I met my children and the guys, I would have pretended I never had this thought. My selfish thought is Netanyahu, get out of Gaza. Now it's affecting me. I was even a little shamed from that thought. That people risking their lives daily, soldiers, conversation, and we're strong, Shir Amalas. And the second I was under threat, Netanyahu, get out of Gaza. That's what I felt. But before I had my children and met the kids of today, I would have pretended like I would have denied that feeling. Shir Amalas. But I'm not, I don't like it. My kids have taught me, be attuned to your own emotions, no pretend. So now I learned I'm selfish. Hashem made me up. No shame. I actually like taking a walk with honest thoughts because I don't like pretending. It's not just action. There's an inside world. My inside world says, Netanyahu, get out of Gaza. It's affecting me now. Could you please leave Gaza? That's incredibly selfish. But I like going on walks with who I am. So I started thinking about, okay, Daniel, what do you want to do about this? So I said, Daniel, this guy just taught you that you have a direct line with Netanyahu. Okay, so let's call him up. So I'm going to speak to Netanyahu like he taught me. I have a direct line. I'm going to tell, so what, Daniel, what do you want to tell Netanyahu? But I want to tell Bibi, I appreciate him a lot. This Yid who's anywhere you go in the world, I would talk with a lot of covet. Anywhere, I don't know politics, nothing. I know anywhere he'd go in the world, a lot of goyim would hate him, probably kill him for who he is. He's a Yid, he's safe by me. I would talk to him with covet. I'd probably say Reb Bibi. I don't know what to call him. I wouldn't say his first name, he's older. But I'd say, Reb Bibi, if you do me a favor, please get out of Gaza, it's affecting me. I assume he's a nice guy, he's a Yid. Say, Daniel, you know what, it's affecting you, we're out. And he'd call Galant, he'd say, it's affecting Kalish in Connecticut. He seemed like such a nice guy. Let's get out. And I started picturing that we even now, it was 1 second, we have Yidden stuck on the ground there. We have Yidden on the ground in Gaza. We have Yidden that are there, that are underground in Gaza, held by Hamas. I started praying real. So I want to say to everybody here that today's generation's a lesson. Pay attention to inside. We don't have to pretend things. We can ask things. You don't have to be afraid. A kid stopped me in South Africa. He asked if he could speak privately. He was a Kollel guy. Could he speak? He made sure nobody was in the room. He said, I have such an embarrassing thing to tell you. He was very afraid to say it. He ended up saying, could I first tell you good things about me so you don't look down at me? He started telling me good things. He looked like a wonderful guy. He shared such nice things. Then he said, I hate Monday and Thursdays. The Tachlin kills me. That was his dark secret. I promise you he has more secrets to share. How tragic that he didn't know. The kids of today teach. You can meet your inside. You can have a difficult time with a long Tachlin and be tremendously God-fearing. Learn our own inside, pay attention to our children, what they're saying. There's an honesty and an emotional nuance that's incredible. My Rebbe, Rabbi Sonnenschein, taught me about this world. Till today, I bring guys in yeshiva. Before this year, a guy in yeshiva came early because he understands the world within. And it affected the Torah I learned, it affected the prayer, that how I prayed. And I want to tell all our friends here that really pay attention, emotional nuance, hear what the child is saying. There's a lot, we can grow tremendously, and then we can be there for our children. We don't want to be unaware of their own journeys, and their journeys here, and we're being kind of here. That's the first message. But I want to ask Rabbi Sonnenschein a question. And the question, whenever you speak about emotional nuance and understanding, creates a tremendous anxiety. People say, and this is the question I would like to ask Rabbi Sonnenschein on behalf of maybe some of us here. The question becomes, okay, Kalish, emotional nuance, feelings, So how does this look practically, Kalish? My kid's about to go on the bus, but I say, it must be so hard for you. And like, okay, so now the kid's supposed to go to sleep. It must be so hard, a dark room. Like, how does this come by way of discipline, rules? Did we just eliminate, did our conversation of emotional needs eliminate rules, structure, discipline, normalcy? Are we raising a generation that's like weak and soft? And that's the question I'd like to ask Rabbi Sonnenschein, because whenever there's a discussion of this, that's the logical next question.
The emes is that it's exactly, if you think about it, it's exactly the opposite. Being firm with children, having boundaries, the binyan part of Zriya binyan, the structure is very weak when our children feel that we're doing it because we don't get them. So if my child feels like I'm telling him or her to go to sleep, and I don't understand that she really doesn't want to go to sleep, so then the pshat is not that I'm a parent that has an opinion and I'm being mechanech my child. Then the pshat is that I just don't get it. I'm clueless. And when she grows up, she's not going to make her kids go to sleep because she gets it. But if my children understand that I feel with them, I get them, I hear, I understand what's difficult for you, and yet, because this is such an important part of chinuch, and in the right way, I have a boundary, and I'm firm about something, and I make sure that my children do the things or don't do the things that are important, that are the right thing at the right time for them to do. And they know that I have a heart that feels. They know that I'm with them and I'm understanding them and I'm hearing their story. Then I'm teaching them a profound lesson in life. I'm teaching them how these two things go together in our lives, being aware of our inner world and working with that inner world to be able to match with the responsibilities of the world. And Adarabah, sometimes we can bring it together in a way that we never would have been able to otherwise. I'm brought back to a moment, a very painful moment, but we're all family here, so so I'm going to mention it. Sometimes it's true when you hear this type of a schmooze. Somebody, one of you is going to be in Kosher World tomorrow, and you'll be like, "What did they talk about? You were by the thing last night?" Yeah, I was there. Yeah, I thought you would go. Yeah. What did they talk about? I bet they said you should just let your kid do anything they want, right? Well, actually, they did start off talking about being aware of your kid's emotional world. Yeah. I saw that coming. Yeah. So basically, you let your kids do whatever they want. That's how you raise good kids. Excellent. No. When we, all of us here who heard how Rabbi Kalish so beautifully spoke about having that inner emotion and that inner world open, when we're madrich and mechanech our children firmly and appropriately firmly, they're getting it from the parent that gets them. Wow, that's incredible. And even if they don't consciously realize that that's what happens, that's what's happening, but you could be sure that as they grow up, they realize they're going to say, my parents were very makbid. A few Friday nights ago, I'll tell you the painful story in a minute, but I'm stalling. Okay. A few Friday nights ago, I came home from shul and my Hindi was asleep on the couch. Okay. Now women are chayiv in Kiddush Friday. It's a deraisa. It's not considered a mitzvah say shazman grama kol sheyeshnai b'shamar yeshnai b'zachar. So I have a child who's higia l'chinuch. I know her well. She's very higia l'chinuch, and she's sleeping, and she wouldn't want to wake up. And it's pain. No, if any of you have been there, it's painful to have to wake up that child. And I was already thinking to myself, she can't wake up. The halacha is that when she wakes up, she'll make the Friday night Kiddush tomorrow. Like it's possible to do that. So I walked over to her. I decided I was going to try gentle, and gentle didn't work. I'll teach her how to make Kiddush in the morning. I went over to the couch. I started going like this to her cheek. just gently. And her eyes like fluttered open for a minute. Like, Hind, do you want to come for Kiddush? She came for Kiddush. If she looks at me as a father who does not understand, I'm tired, I'm not interested, I'm not in the mood. So then all I taught her was Tati's makbid about Kiddush. Didn't let me sleep. I remember that time. But if she looks at me, and I hope that the gentle way that I woke her up gave that over to her, if she looks at me as Tati really, really understands that I was sleeping, I saw how gentle he woke me up, then what she learned was how important Kiddush on Friday night is. I hope that for the rest of her life, she'll be mechavev Kiddush on Friday night because she went through that experience. Sometimes it's not as easy. Many of you know that one of my children struggled with anxiety for a long time. And there was a tkufa that he sometimes needed to be able to watch a video to be able to take his mind off the anxiety that he was struggling from. And he asked me one Erev Shabbos at a very, very, very difficult time. He's a tremendous Yirei Shamayim. If you know him, he's a tremendous Yirei Shamayim. And he asked me if we could set a video on a Shabbos clock on Shabbos. I thought a lot about that because technically it's not us to do that. It's a tremendous deal to me. And I felt like his Shmir Shabbos is so, so, so precious, and his Yirei Shamayim is so precious that if I did that, I would be like breaking a boundary in terms of his Shmir Shabbos, that even though halachically it's okay, but in terms of his Hanhaga of Shabbos, I felt like I was breaking a boundary. So I told him that we're not going to do that. It was one, he probably knows this, even though I never expressed it to him, but it was one of the most painful psukim I ever gave in the family or out of the family, because he was in a ton of pain. And I stayed with him on Shabbos, and I sat in his room for a lot of Shabbos, and I can't even describe how much money on books and games and things to try to distract him, so in a way that's oisgehalten, that's keeping with the spirit of Shabbos. So what did he learn from that? That he learned. So I was firm. I said, no, we're not going to do that. And he's a lamdin, my son, also. It's not like he doesn't know the halacha. He knew that. What did he learn? Had I not been connecting with him emotionally, so he would have learned that I don't appreciate his anxiety. I don't understand how much tsar he's in. But knowing that I was living this nightmare with him, I hope, I daven, I think, he learned that Shabbos is so, so, so precious that we'll hold each other's hands and hang on to each other through Shabbos, because that's how much we care about Shabbos with all of the emotion. So you hear what I'm saying? It's the exact opposite. The ability to be firm as a parent is much stronger with an awareness of the inner world of a child. We have to be careful. There are things we have to be careful of. This is something, it's not a secret. I struggled with this in my early years as a parent a lot. We have to be careful not to punish out of anger. Anger in parenting is poisonous. We have to work on that. If we have a tendency to get angry, we have to deal with it. I put endless amounts of kaiches into trying to become a little less of an angry person. It's still sometimes a struggle, but anger is not a way to be mechanech. The mashgichim of recent generations told us that even though the pasuk says that if you hold back your rod, you hate your son. In other words, it's important to punish your children. It doesn't mean a literal rod. Volba says you have to use what he calls a makal shel noyam, a rod of pleasantness. It's interesting. We're talking about emotions. My child does something wrong. I could have one of two reactions. I could give him a patch, or I could say, I'm disappointed. I believe that our emotional kesher to our children is so strong that, and I hope that this is the case, that many of our children will be like, hit me, but don't say you're disappointed. That's the relationship we want. That's the relationship we want. We have to be very careful. Be careful with those words, I'm disappointed. When you say I'm disappointed, you say, I'm disappointed that such a hush of a boy like you made this mistake. I'm sure it's going to be easier tomorrow. I'm sure we're going to change it. We're going to work on it. Be very careful. I'm disappointed in the world that Rabbi Kalish described. Oh, that's not pashut. I remember when we were kids, my father used to patch us when we did something wrong. He used to say, I've told you this before, he used to say, give me your hentala. Still can't believe we did. You talk about the difference in today's kids. I was like 9, 10, 11 years old. If we do something wrong, my father would say, give me your hentala. And I'd be like, you're laughing. You understand? To me, it was the most pasha thing. I gave my hand, my father would go like that. And the truth is, he never hit hard. That hit really was, I'm disappointed. That's really what it was. Yaakov Yosef famously used to hit the bed next to the child. You know, that was his, he took out his strap and hit the bed. You know, that it is that I'm disappointed. I want to just, before I give it back to Rabbi Kalish, I want to point out one very, very important insight in terms of structure. And that is that chinuch is not punishing, consequences, all of those things. There's a place for such a thing in chinuch, but that's not what chinuch is. A lot of times parents and educators think that if I can't back up the chinuch, I'm not going to say it. If I can't force my son to make a bracha, then I'm not going to bother teaching him to make a bracha. If my son is chutzpahdik to me, and nowadays our kids, as Rabbi Kalish said, they express their feelings quite articulately nowadays. So my child says to me something, you know, like you're the worst father that ever lived from Adam Arishan until Mashiach, you know. So when that happens, and I feel like I can't do anything about that chutzpah, so I feel like, okay, I'm stuck. What am I supposed to do? Or I start looking, this is such a nebuch, I start looking for these exquisite ways of torturing my children because I don't know what to do to get them to stop. You're not going to camp. You're not like these insane things. You know, we start, you know, and things that we ourselves don't even want to keep or can't keep because we're so desperate to have something to hold our kid down with, and we're missing the point. Chinuch is teaching. If a child is chutzpahdik to a parent and you say, we don't talk to a tati that way, we don't talk to an abba that way, we don't talk to a mommy that way, you taught your child something. By the way, today's children, many of them, it's just tafshim pei daled. We don't talk to a mommy that way. Yes, we do. You just shrug. You gave the lesson. You don't need the einish b'tzida. You taught the lesson. Your child is listening to you. He is absorbing the lessons. Just give the lesson. That's a firmness. Don't back down. Give the lesson. We don't talk to a father that way. That's not how we speak about a teacher. I understand that you're upset about what your teacher did. It's not how we speak about a teacher. Let's try to phrase it in a way that you could make your point without speaking down to the teacher. And so on and so forth. We can do it in a way that sometimes we feel like we have to have teeth to it, and we don't realize we already have teeth because we're the parents.
I want to speak about this topic. I want to say to everybody here about being aware of our children that right here tonight, Rabbi Sonnenschein, the Rav's children are in attendance. And to watch the Rav's children listen to shiurim and a living example. I'm close to a lot of the children. I'm close to the children, incredible children. And it's a living lesson of this relationship of understanding. And if anybody, this second question, does it lead to wildness, lack of obedience, and where that comes in? One just has to look at Rabbi Sonnenschein Shlita and his children, who are incredible lessons of closeness and wonderful B'nai Torah, beautiful grown people. I want to explain a programming thing about tonight. We're getting to the end. So it looked like the first topic, emotional nuance, but now we're very aware that, okay, they're known, warm, understanding emotions. We got to get in there, the discipline thing. So it's got to be in this. So point number 2, we memorized emotional nuance. And 2, they got in discipline also. I'd like to explain that the second choice, we could have gone tonight and not mentioned the word. That's very little agenda just to give over, to share with our friends, to actually utilize a night. If allow me to say that it's one of my biggest worries of my life, I'm meeting a generation that many people faced discipline minus relationship, and that equals rebellion. Discipline minus relationship is a simple math equation. I'm out. And I'm very scared. One of the scares of my life in caring about a lot of kids of today is they're not going to be tough enough because they think the discipline was the problem. This wasn't like point number 2, one should discipline and one should have normalcy and expectations and a firmness. It's time to go to sleep. I get nervous. There's not like a side point, like we should speak about discipline. Of course, it's time to go to sleep. What are you talking about? You're going to school. What are you talking about? I spoke to a guy this Friday night for 3.5 hours till about 5 in the morning. And I was tough with him and he started bawling. You're tough? You don't hold the toughness, crying like a baby. I am scared for him that he is going to think that discipline is bad. And I'm happy that somebody he likes a lot. We love each other. You were like firm with me and tough. He couldn't believe it. The next day we spoke, he felt very respected that I was tough with him because I told him the truth. I was very honest and firm. As the Rav explained, understanding is the one who, of course, discipline and firmness and normalcy. We're all going to have different lines. We're different people. But not to be afraid to draw the line, not to be afraid, oh my goodness, they're going to go off the derech. No. I honestly, tonight we're discussing things. Chinuch's a broad area, and we're choosing to discuss it. We're not afraid. We might have our fears. I'm going to deal with my fears a different time. But this was thought out, what we want to share with our friends. The people coming tonight are close to us. We could have gone the night, talked about emotional nuance. We have point 3 and 4. We're not going to get to point 4 for sure. Point 3, it depends how much, if I can control myself a little bit, if we can get to. What I want to say to all my friends, to everybody here, is don't be afraid. Don't function afraid. The normalcy of rules, the normalcy. I watch my wife. She's by nature myself. I might be softer in a way that's not good for my kids. She saves my kids' lives. I am zeichet to have incredible children. And it's completely, my wife, the fact that she could say, it's time to go to school and you got to go. You got to go. And I stand behind and join in and work on my own weaknesses to stand up and say, get to school, it's time to go. And not to be afraid. And I worry a generation if there are kids who felt and faced discipline minus relationship will throw out the discipline as if it's something bad. That wasn't the problem. It's a misdiagnosis. So we're asking for emotional bond, connection, understanding, a nuanced understanding. And we're highlighting, we're not like, it's not a fear factor that better. So now we save the day. Tomorrow in Kosher World, it was spoken about also. It's not understanding. It's fakert, it's a deep worry. We want to go around and stress this, not to be afraid in the slightest. It's actually people, if you don't understand today's generation, I think you'll actually be afraid to say firm. And like the Rav explained, not at all. The one who understood, the one who mamish gets it, now this firm, excuse me. I see in the yeshiva, people would assume Rabbi Yosef is here with his mishpacha. He's a softie. He's very honest and firm with the guys, incredibly. Guys speak about getting yelled at, getting told the truth. Because of course, that's the respect to a person, obviously. Excuse me, what are you doing? Firmly, again, not anger. You can't anger. It's usher to yell at kids out of anger, to touch a kid out of anger is an issur deraisa, for sure. For sure, no anger allowed. It's usher deraisa to touch a yid. If there's cases, you're allowed to hit in the hand. There's cases, not very recommended. There are cases, l'shem shamayim. There's a stitch of anger, usher deraisa. One shouldn't touch a child. One should yell at a child from anger. That we have to work on. We're human beings, and if we make mistakes, we don't hand in our license as parents. We continue to go back at it, but of course, anger is not part of the equation of chinuch. From a place of, if we yell at a kid in anger, we did an issur. Mamish did an issur, that's mivur. Now, we're not shlugged up. We say, mechil, like I lost my cool yesterday. Anger has no place in chinuch, none, zero. From a place of intelligence to give a kid a good yelling, a good honest. My wife will say something, she'll hear me talk to Bosh, that people would know how tough you were. It's Dvarim Pshutim. Dvarim Pshutim. Now we all have our ways, but really this is spoken about tonight as the second point tonight, not to be afraid of that. Please don't be afraid of affirmness. It's spoken about as a very important point that's not out of fear of our positions. It's very much out of fear for a generation. Where if somebody went through discipline and toughness minus relationship, so the answer to those that follow sports amongst us, often when a team has a manager who's a disciplinarian and the team rebels, so they bring in another guy who's complete FKers and the team is going crazy and nothing works. It's an overreaction, very dangerous. In the world we live in, there was a period that religion controlled the world. It's called the Dark Ages. They devastated the world with craziness. And the response is separation of church and state. Often there's overcompensation. And the answer is emes, is honesty, is not overcompensation. So it's a real point that we want to make to our friends tonight, to ourselves, a reminder of this that's ever so important. It's something that's really, really crucial in own chinuch for our kids, not to be afraid of this. Again, with the emotional nuance, if somebody didn't have that and then wakes up their kid even gently, so then you just don't understand. Then it's just, you're forcing things, but from the place of understanding, of course, not to be afraid. It's bedtime. That doesn't, and children who are understood and are developed emotionally could be incredibly strong and powerful are, and of course that would be. So that is topic number 2 that we felt the chazer to remind ourselves. I think there's time, right, Gigi? We have time for one more if we rush. This is, how are people supposed to say, yeah, like, we're not leaving like choice. It's 10 at night. Do we say to close or do we do the third topic? So we'll be as a wrap up. What I would ask the Rav is, after these 2 topics that we're walking home with, if there's one final, some sort of, maybe even like an assay type that we can go home tonight. We're going all back facing our children, thinking about our families. If there's like a final, some message, some idea that we can bring home to our families as a third idea, that's what I would ask the Rav.
Well, I'm not going to accept that I'm saying the final thing. I'll say something very short, and then I'll bounce it back to Rabbi Kalish to say a final thought. I just want to share an emotion with you. Speaking of emotions, I just want to share an emotion with you, and I think that it's something as parents that we have to carry as very, very precious. Every once in a while, you get up to a pasuk during Kriyas HaTorah that could bring tears to your eyes. And one of those psukim for me is when Yaakov Avinu is asked, who are these people? And Yaakov Avinu answers, Hayeladim asher chonan elokim es avdecha. These are the children that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gifted your servant. That's our children. Our children are the gifts that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. Our children don't have to be perfect, don't have to be perfect in the eyes of the world, and they don't have to be perfect as people to be the greatest gifts of our life. Each one of the neshamas that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us, with all of its, with the journey, with its challenges, with its struggles, with its sweetness and cuteness, with its midas tevos, with the whole package of each child is Hayeladim asher chonan elokim es avdecha. These are the children HaKadosh Baruch Hu gifted us with. We have to allow ourselves, give ourselves the credit to appreciate our children as gifts, even when they're not perfect, maybe especially when they're not perfect. I think about those days when we were going with little children to around ShopRite at Stop and Shop, and every once in a while, I say every once in a while, it was almost every time, a kid would have some kind of meltdown in the store, and you're standing there in the aisle. We used to go shopping with our kids, remember? And And you be there in the aisle, and the kid is carrying on, and it feels embarrassing. And of course, then as I'm dealing with my son, Rabbi Kalish walks in. Like, but as we became more accustomed to being parents, and we recognized that's our children being children. We could laugh about it now because we could really laugh about it now because that was our children being children. There was no place for that feeling. Our children were being children, and that's all. And even as they get older and they struggle with things, whether the world, today's external world that has a hard time seeing inside, values them because they're in the right yeshivas or the right Beis Yaakovs or got the right shidduchim, or it's more pneumistic, the beauty that they have. And maybe in the eyes of the very, very external world, they don't top the list of the Bacher of the Year award or the Girl of the Century award. Maybe that's not who they are. But I'm not apologizing. That's my hardest thing about what I'm about to say is that I'm not apologizing. These are Hayeladim Asher Chanan Aleikim Es Avdecha. We couldn't be more fortunate to have them. We're not ready to change our children in a way that, we're not sending them back for a refund. We're not going to be embarrassed of them. We're not going to be ashamed of them. We're not going to be angry at them for the way they make us feel about ourselves. We're going to look at our children with the whole peckle of who they are. And we're going to say, this neshama, HaKadosh Baruch Hu prepared a gift for me. However many years ago, this child was born. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me a gift. And I'm mekabel the gift from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I'm going to do the very best I can. And today's parents really are doing the very best they can. To do what I can to help this child in his next steps of his journey. Some of it is in my hands. So much of it is not in my hands. It's in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hands. But no matter where the journey of any of my children takes them, I am their fan club. I'm their cheering squad. I am going to be there no matter where my children are, no matter what choices they make. I am going to be there to say, I am going to celebrate that these are my children, and they are going to feel the pride that I have in them and the trust that I have in the decisions that they make. And you wanted something for us to do tonight? This is what we should do tonight. We should go home. Hopefully our children are sleeping. Maybe there are some houses where the children are sleeping. We should go into their bedrooms and we should look at our sleeping children and we should say, Hayeladim asher chanan Elokim es avdecha. Thank you, Hashem, for that gift. And maybe you have sons or daughters that are off in yeshiva somewhere. Call them and say, I'm so, so, so proud of you. I love you so much. You are the greatest gift in my life. Without ifs, ands, or buts. Not because of anything, just from the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave me this gift.
I want to absorb those. We all should absorb those words, and we all want to go home and apply those words. We're part of a nation that is praying, Rabbi said. We're praying for our people. We're in a difficult situation, the most unique situation I've ever seen in my lifetime. And as a people, a very complicated, dangerous, a situation that I haven't heard one intelligent and spoke to many sophisticated people, a situation like, what's the answer? Let go and the enemy's there, kill the enemy and it creates more enemy. Tremendous contradictions and a problem that the only answer is turning to Hashem. We're in a situation our nation is praying. All of us pray for our children as well. I dare say the biggest prayers, if we each visit our own private Shemona Esreis, the prayers for our children are very powerful. I'd like to say that the deepest prayer of our life, my belief is, when I look at my child, I say, I love him, he's my kid. My son, my daughter, I love him, he's my child. She's my daughter, I love her. That's the deepest prayer for our people you ever prayed. We're Hashem's children. And you bring to the world, that's my child, that's my child. I love him, he's my child. I love her, she's my child. is the deepest prayer of our lives. When we as parents work to be mechanech our children, we could dig into something. We don't have to be from, we don't have to overcome. We could dig into a very deep mitzius that's in us. That's my child. I love this child. We have to be able to tap into that. But we could tap in, I love this child, it's my child. And when we tap into that, for real, then we just prayed for our entire nation. We prayed for our children. We're all Hashem, Banim Atam, Hashem Lekeh. We're Hashem, we're your children, Hashem. Parent loves a child. So that would be a profound prayer for us all anytime that we dig in. That's my child. I love you, my child. Rabbi Sonnenschein was talking about being proud of our children. Having a tremendous pride. Every kid craves that. Mom's proud of me, dad's proud of me, craves it. And our children understanding that we're proud of them. Proud of you, really. But not just words saying it. Not just words, it's real. I'm proud of you. It's not just, parents will sometimes come for advice. I know my kid's special, but, and they really do know, but they're not living in the space of what they know. To live in this space, I'm awed by my child, I'm dazzled by it. Rav Hirsch called it the bedrock of education, that all chinuchs in that space. It's not I know, but. That means you're not in that space. I'm talking you're in your space. I'm dazzled by this child. I'm amazed by this precious soul. We're capable of that. If something's bothering, hurting us, so we need our own, sometimes our kids insult us or we're hurt, we need to learn how to heal ourselves and then get back to that space, this beautiful person. So to be proud of our children would be a rallying cry. To really be proud, it's what kids crave. And a kid's lacking this is missing the world. That my mom's proud of me, my dad's proud of me. To really be proud of this precious soul, to have a pride, literal pride. This is my son. This is my son, this is my daughter. A literal pride. It doesn't have to look the way other people don't get a vote in this. Nobody gets a vote. It's my child. It's my child. Nobody gets a vote in this. It's my child. The sense of this child is precious, and if it is my son, it is my daughter. I got a call from a Yid in Eretz Yisrael. He said he has a kid in his shir, and he heard that I was zeichet to have a child. It's now 8 years running. Siyata B'Shmaya. I have a son for 8 years straight in the daily shir that I give. For 8 years in a row, I'm zeichet that a son sits in that shir. So he said, I heard a Yid in Eretz Yisrael that you've taught a child. Because I'm zeichet to see it said for the first time I have a son in my shir. Can you tell me any rules? So I told him, if you were a Rebbe of little kids, his son was older, then I don't know. But your son's older, one rule I have. If you bring cookies in, your son is first, second, third. If 5 guys raise their hand, answer your son first. If anything, your son is first. The hope of any sophist, they're not little kids. The hope of anybody is also to be a ben. That's my son. That's my son. He comes first. Other kids will understand and they'll be excited. The hope is to also become a son. If your son doesn't count, so never he might become a son, then that's a bad thing. My son, that's my son. I told him your son is first. That's my son. And I say to us all about our sons and daughters to have a pride, to have an appreciation, to express, to dig into that love. That's my child. To have that attitude. I love when a parent, my Resh is a principal, we share a role. If a parent comes at me, that's my son, and defends, even coming at me, I'm happy. I love it. You're defending your child. You're a defender. I don't care what, I don't want to be behind the standards. I don't want them. I want them on the side of the child. That's my son. I say this as a principal. That's my son. That's my daughter. I'm an advocate for him. I'm a fan. A profound fan. I want to speak to a parent. They're like, how do I say this? You're an amazing son, but I want the parent. That's the place of us parents. We can be, we should be. So I ask us all, it's a real place we could dig into. When people have advice, I know he's good, I know she's special, but no, dig in more to I know she's special. Live in that space. Talk about that space. Live in that space. That's a big space. We have questions even when we're in that space. We really be in that space because things can move us out of that space. A lot of times our own stuff can move us out of that space. Let's get in that space. This is my son. I'm proud of him. This is my daughter. I'm proud of her. It's very interesting. I'll tell guys, I'm proud of you. I find myself saying it often. I'm very honest with the guys. Say, I'm proud of guys always say, why? Very interesting. Always. And they're why? Very interesting question. My aunt, I don't know, you're just playing ball so nicely. It's your good jump shot. And the kid's looking at you. I'm just proud. You're getting up and around. I have like a tremendous pride. I really mean, I said pride. I love showing you off. I love saying I'm close. I'm really proud. I have a pride in you. I'm very proud. I have tremendous pride. And having a pride, this is my son. I've watched hundreds of people come for interviews. I love when I see on a father and a mother, this is my child. There's a certain like to introduce my child. They're like really like proud. And then they let the kids speak. They don't interrupt. I could see like that. They're like smiling. This is my son. This is my daughter, a pride. So that would be to me something that would be something we all, the Rav is telling us this. My Sonnenschein was ending with this message. And this was the third idea that we wanted to share with our friends here, that we can love our children as a profound prayer for all of Klal. We're Hashem's children. We could have a pride in our children, and that would be a profound prayer for our people. That the Rebbeinu Shem has a pride. These are my children. I'm Yisrael. We're Hashem's children. All of us should be zeich. It's delightful and delicious to sit together, to study together. We're like Rabbi Sonnenschein started. We have a tremendous. The kids of the city are tremendous. One of the like amazing parts of the city. I was asked tonight about moving here. Somebody called up. One of the main things, you go right to look at the kids of the city. Kids of the city is such a precious, proud point of our city. Tremendous city. We're a city of sincerity, of beautiful people, and our kids' success, a big pride. All of us should be zeichet to have tremendous Yiddish and nachas from our children. Have an excellent night.
First, thank you very much to Kalish Rabbi Yosef for coming here tonight and inspiring us all. There's going to be a meeting from our next door for anyone that didn't daven. So if anyone did daven, it's great, so you can help clean up. Most important point of the evening that we have to take away is also the fact that we gather together because we care about the chinuch of our children. We also care about our neighbors and our friends, which is definitely the Rebbeim and the Moros. They work so hard. They're always underappreciated because there's never enough that we can do for them. As everyone knows, we're coming together as a unit, as a family, as a community to raise the necessary funds to get through the year and to help us get to the next year. As we know, we all live here in Waterbury because we have each other. We might not have much. We know we have a pizza store and that's it, and we're proud of it because all we have and all we need is the like-mindedness and the focus on growing together as individuals and as families and as a community. We cannot do this alone, and we have to do this together. So every single one of us has family, Baruch Hashem. We have people we could turn to. We're not alone. And that means now people in here, we're going to go outside of the community, just like they have many times. Other communities, other schools, other causes have reached out to us through WhatsApp, social media, through phone calls and said simply, I'm raising money. And you're like, again, yeah, again, now it's our turn. So we need everyone to stand up. No one's excused. No one could say that, oh, it's not me. I don't know anyone. If you didn't know anyone, you wouldn't be here tonight because you'd be too shy and you stay at home and go on Zoom. But everyone's really excited about this, and we're going to do it together, and we'll be proud of our accomplishments. And together, we're going to show the real appreciation we have for Yeshiva Kana, for ourselves, and for our children. And together, we're going to make Waterbury great again. But we can't do it. We can't do it without the inspiration that we have tonight to lead us into the campaign, which will start in Hashem, Lag BaOmer, and through the week of following. So I appreciate everyone's support and enthusiasm. Thank you to everyone that signed up already to the page. And we're looking forward to some more sign up, and we're going to do this together with much love. Thank you.
Waterbury. You want it? I'm gonna turn this off.
Someone came over to me, invited, that wasn't Nachum Wolf.